Throughout the history of Connecticut's judicial branch, thousands of lawyers have climbed 34 stooped granite steps to an imposing portico flanked by Doric columns. Beyond these doors sits the Connecticut State Supreme Court, the chief court in the state, an arbiter of the most complex legal issues encountered by our government. This Beaux-Arts classical-style structure also contains the Connecticut State Library and Museum of Connecticut History, which sit adjacent to the court. Join us now as we explore the architecture, history, and construction of these Supreme Court chambers and the historic building that houses them. With the turn of the century, overcrowded conditions in the Connecticut state capitol forced government officials to explore the possibility of constructing a new home for the state library and the Supreme Court, both of which were located in the Capitol building. In 1903, the Connecticut General Assembly established through legislation a commission to make repairs on the Capitol and to procure a site for a new building for state officials. Groundbreaking ceremonies for the new building occurred in 1908 at 231 Capitol Avenue, across from the state capitol. The cornerstone was laid in the spring of 1909, and the building officially opened in November 1910, although the building was not complete. President William Howard Taft was among the first to sign the visitor's book. The original cost of constructing the building was $1,375,000. Now, today's money market value, the price would be close to $50 million. Finishing touches were realized in 1914. The architect was Don Barber. He was well known and respected in Hartford, having designed the remodeling and enlarging of the Aetna Insurance Building, as well as the Capital City's Travelers Tower and the Hartford Bank Building. He was the lead architect designing the historic Yale Bowl in New Haven. In 1955, the lack of space prompted Governor Abraham Ribicoff, who sat on the governing State Library Committee, to create a commission to study the arising needs and make recommendations. On September 23, 1965, Governor John N. Dempsey broke ground for the addition, which was completed in February 1968. There was another change in the mid-'70s with the addition of a new West Wing on Oak Street. A 3-story addition was constructed for judges' chambers, along with a library and office space, at a cost of $850,000. Just think of how difficult the task it was to construct this building. They didn't have modern transportation. Most of the materials had to be brought here by horse-drawn wagons. 7 million granite bricks were used for the construction. Those 8 magnificent granite columns you see as you mount the stairs to enter the building came from Barre, Vermont, each column weighing 25 tons. Atop the columns are figures representing art, science, justice, and history. The sculptor was Francois Tonetti, whose work was recommended by the architect. The model for the figure representing history was Ray M. Jones, who went on to become a very successful musical comedy actress on Broadway. The other 3 figures were modeled after state employees. The motto chiseled over the entrance to the building reads, "Knowledge, History, and Justice," reflecting the architectural plan of the building. Knowledge for the State Library on the left as you enter the building. History for the Museum of Connecticut History, located in the middle of the building. And justice for the Supreme Court. The marble floors you see as you enter the main lobby came from Tennessee. Pink Tennessee marble was also used on the stairways, as well as marble from Tavernale in Genoa, Italy. In the lobby is a model of the USS Connecticut, encased in glass. The actual ship was constructed in 1902. The keel was laid in 1903, and the ship was launched in 1904. In 1907, the USS Connecticut embarked on a 2-year voyage around the world as the flagship of the American fleet. Again, in 1919 and 1920, the ship served in the same capacity. During World War I, the USS Connecticut remained in home waters. It was decommissioned in 1923 under provisions of the Washington Naval Treaty. Just before entering the Supreme Court, on the right, is a portrait of Stephen Mix Mitchell of Wethersfield, who served as Chief Justice from 1807 to 1814. Previously, the presiding officer or Chief Judge was at first the Deputy Governor and later the Governor. Thus, Mitchell was the first Chief Justice under the present form of organization adopted in the early 1800s. The doors leading to the Supreme Court courtroom are 7 feet tall and 43 inches wide. Restored in 1996, they are covered in leather and adorned with brass upholstery buttons. A pair of oval frosted windows decorate the top of each door. The magnificent Supreme Court courtroom draws visitors from all over the world, including high school and college students from France, China, Germany, South Korea, South Africa, and Japan, as well as judges from Russia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, India, Argentina, Kenya, Malaysia, and Bulgaria. One lawyer from Siberia said he would always remember this picturesque and historical court. The wood paneling in the court comes from the white oak tree, the official tree of Connecticut. The panels were considered to be the most crucial spaces requiring applied decoration because of the important legal functions reserved for the room. Carved into the wood paneling are 34 reproductions of the state seal. The state seal is also imprinted on the carpet, containing the motto in Latin, Qui transtulit sustenet, which reads, "He who transplanted still sustains." The grapevines on the seal are 3, representing the first 3 towns founded in Connecticut: Windsor, Wethersfield, and Hartford. The early settlers chose the grapevine because it can be transplanted and sustained. The state seal, or parts of it, decorate practically everything in the courtroom. The vine and leaves motif is even carved in the back of every chair. The walls above the wood paneling are of artificial cane stone, and studding them at regular intervals are 12 gold wall lamps. Above the lamps are portraits of the most recently retired Supreme Court Chief Justices, a practice that began in 1913, just 3 years after the building opened. As new portraits are painted when a Chief Justice retires, they are hung in the left front corner of the courtroom, and the other portraits are rotated. The oldest portrait is hung somewhere in the halls of the building, joining portraits of other retired Chief Justices. Heavy molding and gilding are carried on in the ceiling. One long panel and 3 smaller panels on the north and south sides and one in the end make up the ceiling. From the smaller panels hang heavy gold chandeliers, 7 in all. Two of the most beautiful aspects of the courtroom are the murals gracing the ceiling and the back wall. Both paintings are the works of Albert Herter, famous painter in the early 1900s. Architect Don Barber recommended Herter for the project. Herter also painted murals in the Wisconsin State Capitol and the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. The murals were painted in Herter's studio on Long Island, transported to Hartford and placed in the building in 1913. They are painted on canvas and are fixed to the ceiling and to the wall by white lead. The ceiling mural is entitled An Allegory of Education. The central figure teaches the child beside her from the Book of Knowledge and is attended by the guardian figures of progress and wisdom. The light of education is passed down into the darkness by youths holding torches. Below, figures representing ignorance and superstition, overcome by the light, are falling through the night sky. The mural behind the bench shows the signing of the Fundamental Orders of 1638 and 1639, Connecticut's first written constitution. It was also the world's first written constitution for creating a government and served as a prototype of the U.S. Constitution. Thus, Connecticut is known as the Constitution State. Thomas Hooker, Roger Ludlow, John Haynes, and others composed the Fundamental Orders in Hartford during a fierce winter of 1638-39. Hooker is shown standing and addressing those who are assembled. He was an eminent theologian, scholar, and preacher whose sermon on self-government provided the impetus for the Fundamental Orders adopted in January 1639. Roger Ludlow was the group's secretary. Many historians believe Ludlow actually wrote the Fundamental Orders since he was the only trained lawyer living in the colony at the time. John Haynes is standing with a copy of the Constitution in his hand. Haynes would later become the first governor of Connecticut. At the very top of the painting is the shield of England, Connecticut, and in the corners of the mural are the shields of the new Connecticut. Artist Albert Herter created both murals to be placed in the courtroom to deliver a succinct message. If you take the two paintings together, they show that the court makes its decisions based on the law and on knowledge gained through education. Over the entrance to the courtroom is a balcony of carved oak, which is entered from the gallery of the second floor. Above the balcony is a window affording a magnificent view of the barrel-vaulted ceiling of the building's lobby. The bench upon which Supreme Court justices sit is at the back end of the courtroom as one enters from the front lobby. That bench is also made of the same oak that panels the courtroom. The black-robed jurists arrive through a door behind the bench. On the right and left of the doorway are two flags, the United States flag and the flag of Connecticut. Appearing on the backs of the chairs in which the Supreme Court justices sit is the seal of the state of Connecticut, along with the initials SC. The books located in front of the bench and on the back wall of the courtroom offer rich pieces of judicial history. The gold-bound books include summaries of every appeal heard before the Supreme Court from 1785 through the present. The blue books contain public and special acts passed by the General Assembly. During an oral argument, one of the justices or one of the participating attorneys will search out one of the books for background material. In the center of the courtroom is a podium at which attorneys arguing their cases stand facing the bench. There are seats to the left and the right of the podium for attorneys representing both sides in the oral argument. The railing in the middle of the room divides it into two parts. In front of the railing sit lawyers connected with the case and the other people in the court. Behind the railing are chairs provided for the public. All hearings are public. Anyone can come and watch when the court is in session. Along the wall to the side of the bench are key court personnel. Seated at a table just inside the railing is a court official assigned to recording the oral arguments on a cassette player. To the left is a table at which the marshal for the court sits. The marshal pounds the gavel to start the day's proceedings and is in charge of keeping order in the court. To the marshal's left are two tables, one for the Supreme Court clerk and a second table for a court messenger who's available for the justices and attorneys should they require any assistance before, during, and after the oral argument. To the marshal's right is a doorway leading to the attorney conference room, where attorneys waiting to make their appeals gather. The Judicial Branch hopes you have enjoyed this video tour of the State Supreme Court building. We encourage you to visit us for an in-person tour. You can arrange a guided visit to the Connecticut Supreme Court building by calling the External Affairs Division of the Judicial Branch at 860-757-2270. We also invite you to visit our website at www.jud.state.ct.us.